Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is another episode where Long Island authors will tell you about how they write their books, how they publish them, and how they market them. You can find us on Facebook. Just look for, guess what? The Writer's Dream. You can find us on YouTube, but YouTube's a little bit more complicated. You have to look for my name, Linda Maria Frank. Click on my picture and all of the videos will come up. There are probably close to 200 interviews now. So we've been doing this for a while, and if you really love to read, or you like to write, or you haven't written and you would like to write, there's a lot of good advice and good information on The Writer's Dream. If you want to be on the show, please message me through the Writer's Dream website, or you can contact the studio here. So today's guest is Nanci LaGarenne. Nanci has been on twice before, yes?
Yes.
And Nanci is the author of Cheap Fish, The Bitter End, Refuge, and now the new one is Scapegoat. And I find this the most intriguing idea. So what inspires you to write?
Stories that I'm told throughout my life and traveling to new places. I'm interested in the origins of places. So for this particular book, the inspiration was visiting San Francisco, where my younger son lives, and in the Bay Area, and going to Alcatraz, taking the tour.
Mhm.
But then something happened when I went there to inspire me to dig a little deeper about what happened to those escapees that they never found.
Yes, okay, it's true because there are places that just grab you. It's the strangest feeling. It's very hard to explain to people because I had the same kind of experience when I visited the Cradle of Aviation Museum, and I saw this plane, the Avenger, and there was a plaque in front of it talking about how women built it and flew it and tested it and whatnot. And you could climb into the plane. Every once in a while, they have a day where you can climb into any plane. So I climbed it, which was no mean feat, trust me. And I sat in that plane and something just came over me. And I said, I have to find out more about this. So I know it's that feeling you get, and that's, to me, that's a great feeling because you really are inspired to write then. So San Francisco's an interesting city.
Yes, I loved it. That was the first time I was there, and I think it was 2008 or 9. And we did all the touristy things and stayed on the wharf. But going to the prison, that was closed. Obviously, it had been closed for years. Now I don't think the tours are open anyway, besides COVID. But going in there and putting on the headphones and walking through the prison, it's not a guided tour. You guide yourself and listen and wander around. But what struck me was, you went to the cells and you saw the heads of the papier-mâché heads of the prisoners who escaped, the 3 famous prisoners. But outside, walking the grounds and seeing the ruins of the warden's house, and the guards lived there also, some of them, that struck me because the prison was here and the guards' houses were here. And in fact, the prisoners washed the clothes of the guards and maybe the warden, but they lived there with their families. So,
Yes, because it's
right.
an island.
Now, that prison had hardened criminals. I mean, dangerous murderers. The men that I wrote about and the one particular leader of that escape was not. He was a thief. He wasn't, certainly not an angel, but he didn't kill anyone. There was an armed robbery, no one was killed. He was a thief that kept escaping from every prison. He was in what they call juvie now. He was in foster homes, and so he just kept escaping. So they put him in a place that nobody could escape from, apparently.
Except him.
Except him. And they never found them. And some think because they didn't want to look bad, so they said they drowned. Of course they drowned, or sharks ate them, or so forth. But then I took a dive into that, no pun intended, and found out that it was the warmest summer in San Francisco in years, maybe ever. The moon was a certain moon that created what's called a neap tide, which was gonna be the title, but
Sucks the water out, right?
yeah, it takes the power out of the current. So any people that swim channels try to go a neap tide. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. So it was quite possible, and it's Navy SEALs have done it. You could swim to the city. So if it's possible, and if they had the best circumstances, why didn't they escape? Why couldn't they have survived?
Yeah, well, San Francisco Bay is a very complicated bay. And if you remember the Lacey Peterson case
Yes.
where Lacey, her husband killed her and she was 9 months pregnant. And because the reason why I'm talking about this is to debunk the whole thing about the sharks ate them.
Yes.
Because the way they solved that crime was the prosecution decided, because Scott Peterson admitted that he went fishing the day she disappeared, and he said exactly where he went fishing. So the prosecution got out the tide and current books for San Francisco Bay and figured out if he dropped her in the water, at that point, where would she wash up and how long would it take? And lo and behold, they started looking in that location at the time that she would have washed up, and they found remains of a human, just torso, because the rest of it was either preyed upon by scavengers or because he weighted her down and put wires around her neck or whatever. No head, no hands, and then the remains of a fetus, and then they used DNA to identify. But my point is that you can't forget about the sharks eating the remains, because these remains, they lasted a number of weeks. So also, you're right about the tides and the currents are something that can be, I wonder if, we'll probably never know this, but I wonder if he understood that and that's why they chose that time to escape.
I don't know. There was never any, I just put that in my book because I did that research to say, I wonder what kind of moon it was. Maybe it was a full moon, so it was easier to see. Was it warm? Was it cold? So on that particular date, you can find out what moon.
Yeah, sure.
And you can find out, like you said, other information that would say a body would wash up here, or they found the remains of their rafts on Angel Island.
Okay.
So they just assumed they were washed out to sea themselves. But in my book, I'm saying they purposely, left them that, and then they swam the rest of the way. They were in good shape and they were determined. So it's possible, I think. And also at the time, there's no media. If you're gonna disappear, it's better to disappear in the 60s than now, because now everyone has a phone, every video,
Takes a picture of it,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's none of that then.
No, I
There's
know.
one, think about the TV then, right? Everyone had one TV in the house, sometimes black and white, and then color, but it wasn't
Like
a
it is
media
now.
circus like it is now, nothing, so.
So what happens to your characters?
So they split up because that was the way they could stay alive. If they were all together, everyone's searching for three men. There were the Anglin brothers from the South, and then there was Frank Lee Morris. And so in the book, the Anglin brothers go someplace up north off the grid. And Frank Lee Morris, who changes his name to Cincinnatus, which he takes from a poet who he likes. He's a reader. So the poet, and I discovered this poet when I visited the Oakland Hills where my son lived at the time. Very storied there. So there's the poet, Joaquin Miller's middle name was Cincinnatus.
After the Latin poet, Cincinnati.
Now, some people think it's the innkeeper from the Daniel Boone show, who's apparently, his name was Cincinnatus. And so it isn't, but he tells someone that when they say that. He just agrees with them because he doesn't need to tell them anything more at the time. So he takes up a new name, but he goes off with some hippies and a caravan, and he recreates himself. He says he's a teacher on sabbatical from the East Coast. So originally, I also found out he was born in DC, and his mother was 16 when she had him, and she gave him up. So there he is in California, obviously because the prison was there, and he goes off, and you can disappear. I mean, you can disappear in the 60s, and people are very accepting, and he was a smart man, so he went with the program, you know. And then he disappeared from the group, purposely went off on his own, which many did. You know, you had all these sort of pilgrims or soul searchers or whatever you want to call them. So he just did that, and he discovered these abandoned logging cabins, which now are homes in the Oakland Hills, but years ago they were built there. They're very sturdy because of earthquakes, and they're up 70 steps or 100 steps up. But they used to be for the loggers who built San Francisco. So he found one abandoned, and he made
Made
himself
it
at
his
home.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what happens?
And then he has sort of this, I don't know, communing with nature, because it's in the trees and the redwoods and the trees. He's in this primordial forest, and he loves it. And then he finds paints in the house, and so he starts painting trees and whittling wood and the moon, because he's fascinated with the moon, but also in awe of it because of his escape, but also that he's free now. So that's the underwriting theme, of course, is his freedom. He wants to be free no matter what. And so how he can do that, you know, we don't know at the beginning. I didn't even know at the beginning, but I just knew that he's going to be successful in freedom, in finding freedom. And so here he is in these beautiful hills. He starts walking, and he then starts meeting people who aren't alive.
Mhm. So it's a ghost story.
So it's a
Escape
ghost
ghost.
story, yeah. In a not a spooky, you know,
No.
way, but
Spiritual.
yeah, which I didn't know when I began writing it. I just knew that he was going to be free and something significant was going to happen. At the time, I told my mother that I was writing this book, and she said, well, you know that your Aunt Pat, her brother's wife, was a school teacher in San Francisco, because that's where they lived for years until they died. And she taught the children that came over from Alcatraz of the warden and the guards. And then I said, okay, and there's Patsy. So she's the school teacher who owns the cabin, which isn't abandoned. She just doesn't use it all the time. So there's that, and she's not dead. I'm sorry, spoiler alert.
No, but okay, but the rest of them are, and you're not gonna tell us who the rest.
No.
Don't tell us, because it
Okay,
should be a great surprise.
okay.
So what's the overriding message in this book?
The overriding message is freedom. But it's also what, you know, what are we here for? What he comes to sort of this kind of moral crisis. He's not just an escaped prisoner. He wants to live in the world, but he's so affected by the 60s and what's happening. You've got the Vietnam War. He meets vets. He meets other people,
Oh.
you know, who are struggling, who are minorities, there's racism, there's JFK is killed, Bobby Kennedy is killed, Martin Luther King is killed, all these things happening. He knows what's going on in the world. He can read a newspaper. So, and he knew what was going on in prison, but now he's in the world. So how does he go forward as this escaped prisoner who wants to be a free man? Can he live in this world, and can he ever forgive himself for what he did? Because he feels also people are getting killed in Vietnam. He would have enlisted probably if he was free. He would have joined these protests and fought for equal rights and the rights of everybody and important things. But here he is painting trees. Like, is that going to be his existence? He's like a hermit.
So there's two journeys. His journey from Alcatraz to the cottage in the woods, and there's his spiritual journey of reinventing himself,
Yes.
which I think that's a key winner in a book, is when a character develops and changes, I think, anyway. I mean, we can have characters driving plots and whatnot, but when they actually change themselves, it's compelling. So I think this is a great read.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you have an overriding message in all your books?
So I think that I do, and I was thinking about that, and you asked me that once before for a different reason in a different book. And yeah, it's not intentional, but I don't know, maybe we are what we write, like, I don't know. Yeah, so there's always women in the book, and they're always strong women. They always have something to say. They influence the male characters because the books also always have male characters. It's not always a relationship type thing or a love story. But even if it is, it's always equal, and it's always the women have something to teach. They have some intuition about how to go forward, as in this case, Patsy has intuition about just how Cincinnatus can remain free. And so I guess the message is listen to the women with the intuition. You might just figure out something.
Yeah, well, women do have a different take on things, and sometimes wiser. Sometimes we see things, well, we see things differently. Not completely differently, but we see things in a way that I think is more attuned to people's growth there. So, I mean, we're mothers, most of us. I mean, even if you're not a mother, you're a woman, and so you have that motherly insight into people. And yeah, they should listen to us more often. I think there'd be a better world. Okay, so is this the first in a series? Do you think you're going to make a series out of this?
No, I don't think so. I don't think this is a series book. I think that it's sort of wrapped up at the end, and yeah, I think I'm done with it. Although I really loved living in the moment of writing it, and it's always sad to say goodbye to the characters, I think. And I really came to
I never say goodbye to my characters.
Yeah, they're around, right? Yeah.
No, I just keep putting them in books.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
everything I
because
write
you
is a
are,
series.
you write a series, yeah.
Yeah, I can't let them go.
Yeah, I did that with Cheap Fish, so I'm not intending, but someone had suggested a sequel and I did The Bitter End. And I was glad that I did, and is there a third one? I don't know, there could be.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I don't think of it as a series book, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? That's true. What did you learn from writing this book?
I learned that people are connected, although that wasn't like news to me, but that something that happened way before even people were born. I mean, I was born when this happened. I remember reading the newspaper and hearing about this. It was always fascinating to me. So I think that I learned that there's hope. People can change with great
Insights, hard work?
insights, not urgency, but a want, a strong want to. He did not want to go back to prison. He was never going back. So they were either going to take him, shoot him down, whatever. He wasn't going back. So if Patsy had an idea that, what about this way? It's not, because again, that's the intuitive thinking isn't black and white. And he couldn't see past that. And also he couldn't forgive himself. So in the beginning. So you can forgive yourself. People can change, and the past can teach you, whether it's somebody else's past, whether it's an old poet from the 1700s. I'm reading Emerson now, and a book that someone wrote about how Emerson can change our life, and his message, which had to do also with women's intuition and how our brains are wired differently, so we have an easier way to access it. Not that men can't, and not that some women are black and white as well in their thinking, but that it's there for all of us. So I learned that, a war going on then, Vietnam. I also learned that, and not that that was also news to me, but I didn't know when I was writing it, that this book is not a book about the 60s and an escape from Alcatraz. It's about today and what's going on today, which people who have read it have said this could be today, because we still don't have equality, there's still racism.
There's still
we're
war.
still wars that we're not figuring out, and, and
The
still
human condition.
the human condition, yeah. So that's, yeah. But hope, I learned that there's always hope.
The most interesting figures in history and in celebrities, for instance, to me, are the people who reinvent themselves.
Yes,
I mean, with all of the drama that was associated with Princess Diana, she reinvented herself.
she did.
She was a teenager when she got married, and she got into a situation that made her very unhappy and sick, and she reinvented herself. And I think that's the fascinating thing. I mean, people are always fascinated with royalty and riches and whatnot, but she was a person
Yes.
who became, she was an advocate for so many things, and she changed people's opinions about things. So reinventing is an important part of growing up, growing older, going from one stage of your life to the next. So because we only have about 5 minutes left, and I want to know, Blue Bottle Press is you, right?
Yes.
Yes, so you're an indie, like the rest of us.
I'm an indie, yeah. Not as cool as an indie band, like my son says, but why not? Like,
No, I think it's the way to go today, because
Yeah,
it's very difficult to break into publishing.
it is.
I mean, you walk into Barnes and Nobles, and what are the books that are put out in front of you? They're all best-selling authors and have been for a while. And even if you manage to be published by a big house, they don't put a lot of money into you because you're not a best-selling author yet. So you do most of your marketing yourself. How is the marketing field for you?
So took your advice, and you'll be happy to know that an audiobook is coming out of Scapegoat by Christmas. So through ACX, which is
Yes.
through KDP, which is the Kindle Direct
Which is
Publishing.
And they're affiliated with Audible and Amazon.
Yes.
So you'll be on Audible and Amazon, and and I found that I got a lot of sales that way from audiobooks. People love audiobooks.
People love them and asked for one, so I dove right in, and I found, I listened to 50 different voices, and although I sort of was between two, the other guy's disappointed, and I'm sending them a copy of the book, both of them, because they want to read it. But very good, very interesting, and also I just did a Goodreads giveaway. 2,000 people entered the contest. Doing 20 books, that's what I did. I mean, I didn't know 2,000 people, I would have done more books, but we have to buy the books and send them to the people.
Yeah, I know.
And we have to pay Goodreads to enter the giveaway.
Yes, yeah, I just
So
did that
everyone
too.
thinks everything is free, and also if you don't publish with a known publisher, we don't get free books. Like, I had an experience of co-writing something with someone, but it was under her name really that the book came out. And we were given like 20 copies, and everyone wanted a free book, but we gave them to family and some good friends, but that's it. But we don't get royalties. We get royalties but we'd have to sell probably, I don't know,
Yeah, Amazon
so many books.
puts you on their website, but they don't do much after that
No.
without cost. Now, where can we find you?
You can find my book, you can find me on my website, NanciLaGarenne.com.
Good, that's good.
And I updated it, so that's there. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and the book is locally out in Brookhampton, it's in Montauk at Homeport, and the other books, some of them are at White's, and Bennett Shellfish has all the Montauk books. And Canio's still might have a few copies. And yeah, so I'm a big supporter of independent bookstores, as I know you are, because
Yeah.
they invite us in. I did the Hamptons Murder Mystery, as I asked to be invited to. I wasn't invited at first because I'm not really a mystery writer, and I'm certainly not famous. But they gave me a book signing at Brookhampton, so I
Oh,
was
that's
thrilled
wonderful.
and very grateful.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I felt that way about when I did a book launch at the book review before it closed. And that's very difficult to do because they want you to guarantee
Yes,
a certain number of people, and I was able to do that, and I don't know how, but yeah, it's good to do those
it
things.
is, it's fun.
So advice, you have any advice? We have a minute left.
Yeah, because I
Advise.
am always asked, how are you writing, where are you writing, what's your process, someone asked. I guess the answer to that is just get up and write, just start writing, do those morning pages or afternoon pages or middle of the night pages, and just start writing, and then if you have a story or some kind of germ of an idea, just go with it. Don't censor yourself, don't give it to people to read, don't tell anyone what you're writing about. So, oh, you're writing a book? Oh, you're an author? What do you write? Fiction. What kind of books? Books about Montauk, books about women, books about this and that. Don't tell them the name of your book, and don't give away. Hemingway said, you lose it if you talk about it.
Wow,
So talk about it after you write it, and
Yeah,
then you
oh,
need
sure.
to get it out there. But yeah, keep it inside.
yeah.
And because I would love to think there's tons of mentors, and maybe there are, and if there's people out there that are, that's great. But nobody helps you. There's no foot in the door. You have to do it yourself.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you for having me.